Prince William sat before millions of listeners and carefully chose what to say, and more importantly, what not to say, something extraordinary happened. No shouting, no royal statement, no dramatic confrontation, no public attack. Yet according to growing speculation surrounding the monarchy's future, Harry and Meghan may have received the loudest message possible without a single direct word being aimed at them. And that is exactly why this story has royal watchers obsessing over every sentence, every omission, every carefully placed silence.
Anyone who has doubted me over the past decade about this evil woman now needs to eat some humble pie.
Who does this? Who behaves like this?
My sources are saying that William no longer recognizes his brother. He basically says he doesn't know who this kid is. Harry has become petulant. He's become vengeful. He's very angry at all times. And William's just kind of like, hey, who the heck are you? And yes, they do blame Meghan.
Meghan Markle is threatening to sue the British royal family and Prince William if her titles are removed.
Harry has gotten with Meghan, and he now feels he has to protect her and, defend her at all costs, even when there's bad behavior.
For years, the battle between Prince William, Prince Harry, and Meghan Markle has unfolded through interviews, documentaries, books, leaked reports, and endless headlines. But now, a new question is emerging. What if the most revealing message wasn't delivered through words at all? What if it came through absence, through names deliberately left unsaid, through people quietly erased from the conversation while the future king painted a completely different picture of the monarchy he wants to lead? The timing couldn't be more explosive. Reports continue circulating that Meghan is allegedly furious over discussions surrounding royal titles and their future. Questions about status, succession, influence, and royal authority have become impossible to ignore. Behind palace walls, titles are not just decorative labels. They are power, they are legitimacy, they are access, they are currency. And whenever titles become part of the conversation, emotions explode. What makes the situation fascinating is the growing belief that Prince William has already decided exactly how he intends to handle the Sussex situation once the crown eventually reaches him. Nobody can officially confirm those claims. Nobody can see inside William's private thoughts. Yet a pattern has emerged, and royal observers keep noticing this same thing. William rarely responds publicly. He rarely fights back. He rarely engages. Instead, he waits. He watches, and then he sends signals through actions. That is why many people became obsessed with what happened during this lengthy public appearance. Because for nearly 3 hours, William spoke warmly about family. He spoke about his wife. He spoke about his children. He spoke about his grandmother. He shared personal memories. He revealed emotional struggles. He offered glimpses into his private world. Yet certain names remain completely absent. Not accidentally absent, deliberately absent. And in royal circles, deliberate silence often carries more meaning than public statements.
Talk a little bit about Catherine, because I just wanted to say how well she did in Italy. She's just come back. That was her first foray out there since her recovery. Yeah. How proud of you are.
So proud. I'm very, very proud. She's been amazing. She's been through so much in the last couple of years, particularly.
I'll tell you for a fact that my sources that work under William and Catherine tell me that she is not a topic of conversation. She is not on their radar.
Oh, okay.
Harry and Meghan, what they do is not on their radar. They are not concerned about.
At the same time, another layer of intrigue was developing behind the scenes. Discussions surrounding Harry's position, future responsibilities, and constitutional roles continued generating speculation. Every move made by King Charles seemed to create new questions. Every decision appeared to shift the balance of power. Every appointment created fresh tensions. But underneath all of those debates sat one central issue. Meghan, again and again, analysts, commentators, biographers, and palace insiders kept returning to the same conclusion. Everything appears connected to the Sussex marriage. The future of titles, the future of reconciliation, the future of royal relationships, the future of Harry's role. It all seems tied to one relationship that continues dividing the royal family years after their departure. Some believe William's eventual approach will be uncompromising. Others believe time could soften his position. But even among those who expect reconciliation someday, there is widespread recognition that nothing changes while the current situation remains remains intact. That possibility creates a fascinating contradiction. On one hand, William is portrayed as deeply hurt by everything that has happened. On the other hand, he remains Harry's brother. Blood still exists beneath the conflict. Family still exists beneath the headlines. The question is whether those bonds can survive years of accusations, public criticism, documentaries, interviews, and books. The palace never answers directly. Instead, the palace communicates through signals. And recently, those signals have become impossible to ignore.
Can be a little bit tricky with names and that kind of thing. So just simply Amanda is absolutely fine.
Yeah. Yes, I'll lose my title this morning. I was hoping for Dame, but it's not come yet, William. I'll talk to you about that
His
later.
Royal Highness.
His Royal
Prince
Highness.
William. How about that?
Oh my good, grippy cream. You can't beat clotted cream. Now, Prince William, what do you do? Think carefully.
I love that I'm the authority on that.
Here's the big debate. Scones or scones? Scones. I just feel like if you say it really fast, people are like, yeah, you said it the right way. But he's asked about this. And this is, again, one of those cute, quirky, safe morning show questions. What goes first, your clotted cream or your jam? I love the fact that he's definitely trying to distance himself as the expert on the debate. He brings up his
As speculation intensified, another development quietly captured attention. Multiple respected royal biographers appear to be reaching similar conclusions about William's future intentions. Different sources, different methods, different investigations, yet remarkably similar assessments. That coincidence raised eyebrows, because when independent observers begin arriving at similar destinations, people start asking whether they are noticing the same clues. Meanwhile, journalists continued examining subtle changes inside royal operations. Small shifts, tiny adjustments, barely noticeable developments, the kind ordinary people might overlook entirely, but royal watchers notice everything. A missing invitation, an absent photograph, a changed seating arrangement, a name omitted from a speech. Nothing escapes scrutiny. Then another intriguing narrative emerged, the possibility of reconciliation between Harry and King Charles.
Is this normally the time when you're doing the school run?
Yeah, I'm hoping that the children are on their way to school. They are listening this morning. I find music for me is so personal to how you're feeling and what you describe. So it's almost like saying to me, like, who's your favorite person in the world? I can't answer that.
No,
but,
you can't.
I love dance.
At first, many observers dismissed reconciliation stories as wishful thinking, public relations, strategic leaks, carefully managed headlines. But eventually, some commentators began noticing something strange. Messages seemed to be emerging simultaneously from multiple directions. Harry's side appeared to signal openness. The king's side appeared to signal openness. The messaging seemed unusually coordinated, almost synchronized. That observation led to growing whispers about behind-the-scenes efforts to repair relationships. Not publicly. Quietly, carefully, strategically, yet amid all those reports, one office remained notably silent: William's. And that silence immediately became part of the story, because whenever everybody else starts talking and one person refuses to participate, attention naturally shifts toward the person saying nothing. What was William thinking? Why wasn't his office contributing? Why remain silent while everyone else seemed eager to discuss reconciliation? Questions multiplied. Answers remained scarce. Then came the arrival of another major development.
Harry, like the late Queen, his beloved grandmother in that way. It's been instilled in him by her. All those afternoon teas that they were taking at Windsor Castle when he was a boy at Eton, the Queen was teaching him what's going to happen. She was showing him, this is what you do when you take over the throne. And William has learned from the best that there was, and that was the late Queen Elizabeth II. And it is always that duty and country comes before anything, before even...
The publication of new investigations and biographies added fuel to an already raging fire. Among them was a particularly explosive examination of William's future reign and his reported plans regarding Harry and Meghan. What made these claims different wasn't simply their content. It was the reputation of the people making them. These weren't random social media rumors. These weren't anonymous internet theories. These were claims presented by veteran investigators with decades spent examining powerful institutions. And according to those accounts, William may have reached certain conclusions long ago. The deeper investigators looked into these reports, the more one theme kept appearing. Control, not public control, not political control, royal control. The kind of control that determines who represents the monarchy, who benefits from its prestige, and who remains inside the protective circle of royal influence, according to growing speculation. William's concern is no longer limited to family disagreements. The concern now centers on what happens when private disputes begin affecting the institution itself.
William does take to the throne, we're going to see a much harder line being taken by him, a much harder approach. Prince William is a man who does not suffer fools. At the moment, Charles has made Harry a counsellor of state.
Terrible.
It's a problem. So what William's going to have to do, and this is what I think William will do when he takes the throne, now this will obviously hinge on Harry still being married to that woman, Meghan Markle. So this all depends on that. If Harry is still married to Meghan, William will strip the title.
That possibility changes everything, because suddenly this is no longer a story about hurt feelings between brothers. It becomes a story about the future direction of the crown. According to reports discussed by several commentators, William allegedly views certain decisions through a constitutional lens rather than an emotional one. And if that's true, then every future choice becomes far more significant. Every title, every role, every privilege, every connection, everything gets reevaluated through the eyes of a future king. Then came one of the most shocking observations of all: the alleged exclusion of Harry from key royal moments. Not loud exclusions, not dramatic exclusions, quiet ones, carefully executed ones. The kind that create headlines precisely because nobody explains them. And that's what makes royal silence so powerful. The absence of explanation forces everyone else to speculate. The public starts connecting dots. Journalists start comparing timelines. Royal watchers start noticing patterns. Those patterns became even more fascinating when discussion shifted toward Queen Camilla and the influence various palace figures may have exerted throughout this long-running family conflict.
Was really resisting any action against Andrew, and William was really saying, we have to let the police in, we have to let the police do their worst, we have to let we have to remove all the protection from him, we have to kick him out of the tent so that he's not part of us, and if that means that he ends up in a court cell or a jail, we'll have to see how the cards fall. People close to Charles were telling me at the time, it's all very well to say that when you're not the king, but when you're king, things look a little different.
Source of hers close to the palace, directly addressing the persistent talk of a Project Thor between Harry and the royal family, was that no one ever wants to see Meghan again. And who can blame them? Paula reports from her source, I spoke to one of my very good sources and no, there is no Project Thor. The reason why is that yes, the king would like to see his son and his grandson. No one ever wants to see Meghan again, but they understand Harry is fully untrustworthy.
Suddenly, the conversation wasn't just about William anymore. It expanded into something much larger. Financial pressures, public image, commercial value, brand power. Because whether supporters like it or not, the Sussex name became a global business enterprise. Every interview, every documentary, every appearance, every contract, every product launch, everything benefited from one undeniable reality: royal association. And that leads directly to the question many analysts keep asking. What happens if those royal connections become weaker? What happens if titles become vulnerable? What happens if the very thing that gives the brand its prestige suddenly faces uncertainty? That question sits at the center of this entire controversy, because titles are not merely ceremonial. They create value, they generate attention, they open doors, and if someone possesses the authority to alter that reality, the consequences extend far beyond palace walls. What emerges from all of this is a picture of a future monarch who may already be thinking several moves ahead, not emotionally. Strategically, the reports suggest William understands exactly where pressure points exist and exactly how royal authority can shape outcomes. Whether those reports are completely accurate remains impossible to verify, but the perception alone has become a major part of the story. Meanwhile, another revealing detail continued haunting observers. During hours of public conversation, William repeatedly highlighted Catherine, his children, his grandmother, family traditions, personal memories, football, and the struggles surrounding illness. He spoke warmly. He spoke naturally. He sounded relatable. Yet those missing names remained missing, and that silence became impossible to ignore. Because royal families rarely communicate like ordinary families. They communicate through gestures, through appearances, through attendance, through invitations, through acknowledgments, through omissions. Every tiny detail carries meaning. When William spoke about Catherine's strength during difficult health challenges, many listeners heard sincerity. When he discussed family life, many heard gratitude. When he remembered his grandmother, many heard affection. But when certain people never entered the conversation at all, many heard something else. else. Distance, deliberate distance, the kind that cannot be explained away as coincidence. Perhaps that's why this moment continues generating so much discussion. Not because William launched an attack, not because he issued threats, not because he publicly criticized Harry or Meghan. He did none of those things. Instead, he did something that may have been far more revealing. He painted a picture of the monarchy he values, the family he prioritizes, and the future he appears determined to protect. And maybe that's the real reason this story refuses to disappear. Because one day the transition everyone quietly anticipates will finally arrive. One day, William will no longer be the Prince of Wales. He will be king. And when that moment comes, every silence, every omission, every carefully chosen word from years before will suddenly be re-examined through an entirely different lens. Perhaps the biggest message wasn't spoken at all. Perhaps it was hidden in the empty spaces, the names that never came, the acknowledgments that never arrived, the silence that lasted for hours. And if royal history has taught us anything, it is that sometimes the most powerful statement inside a palace is the one nobody says out loud. The story may look quiet today, but beneath that silence, something far bigger may already be taking shape. And royal watchers everywhere are still waiting to discover what happens when that silence finally turns into action.